Some families pass down heirlooms. We pass down generational chaos. Every problem somehow becomes someone else's fault. And trust me, the finger-pointing only gets dumber from here. 1. A phone battery dying at 27% became a full generational battlefield when a guy insisted it was boomers' fault for inventing electricity wrong, millennials' fault for normalizing plug-in dependence, and Gen Z's fault for running 10 apps at once like caffeinated squirrels, turning a simple dead phone into a conspiracy board where everyone except the battery itself was dragged into a psychological custody battle over whose lifestyle supposedly murdered it. As if lithium-ion cells are delicate Victorian children fainting because society pressured them too hard. And by the end of the argument, the phone still didn't turn on, but everyone involved managed to feel morally superior about a problem literally solved by plugging it into a wall. 2. A broken office printer triggered a three-way generational meltdown after an employee claimed boomers ruined it by punching buttons like a woodpecker on espresso. Millennials sabotaged it with overly emotional print jobs, and Gen Z finished it off by treating the touchscreen like it's TikTok, creating an investigative crisis over a machine that has been statistically on life support since 2009, with each generation confidently diagnosing the printer's emotional trauma based on their own stereotypes, as if a malfunctioning toner cartridge is a child of divorce forced to pick which parent disappointed it more. And yet, the only accurate conclusion was that the printer died of natural causes, being a printer. 3. A thermostat war erupted in a shared apartment after one roommate accused boomers of training the world to fear touching the sacred dial, millennials of traumatizing the HVAC system with constant compromise, and Gen Z of running the AC like they're trying to air condition the entire planet, turning a simple temperature adjustment into a multi-generational Cold War, where no one knew who was right, but everyone absolutely knew who was wrong. And the only casualty was the utility bill, which rose dramatically while each group defended its philosophy like the thermostat was a moral test instead of a plastic dial controlling whether toes feel slightly chilly or not. 4. An office coffee pot sitting empty sparked an intergenerational autopsy when staff declared boomers at fault for believing coffee magically replenishes itself, millennials guilty of treating the machine like a break room emotional support animal, and Gen Z responsible for brewing iced coffee in the communal pot because it's a vibe, turning a missing inch of caffeine into a courtroom drama where generations cross-examined each other over who committed the moral crime of finishing the pot without brewing a new one, even though the real culprit was the universal human. Tradition of pretending the last sip doesn't count. 5. An exploding microwave burrito became a generational morality play after someone claimed boomers taught the world to microwave food until it becomes a neutron star. Millennials romanticized meal prep to the point of overcomplicating basic heating instructions, and Gen Z assumed everything should be optimized automatically because appliances should have vibes too, transforming a blown-up tortilla into a philosophical debate about modern responsibility, culinary evolution, and who exactly is to blame for the kitchen now smelling like a crime scene involving molten beans, despite the fact that no generation has ever read microwave instructions with sincerity. 6. A delayed software update was transformed into a family-sized blame buffet when one person insisted boomers were responsible for conditioning society to fear pressing install. Millennials contributed by waiting for the perfect emotional moment to update, and Gen Z made it worse by refreshing their phones like they're trying to resuscitate them, turning a spinning loading bar into a generational referendum on who ruined technology the most, even though everyone knows updates fail for one universal reason: the device senses fear. 7. A spilled iced coffee in a car cup holder spiraled into accusations that boomers created cars with cup holders too shallow for modern hydration needs. Millennials made beverages emotionally large, and Gen Z stacked toppings and cold foam so high the cup became top-heavy enough to qualify as architectural malpractice, creating a generational blame triangle around a puddle of sugary defeat, slowly seeping into the upholstery while everyone defended their preferred style of drink container, like lawyers representing clients on trial for beverage-related war crimes. 8. A TV remote lost for an entire weekend turned into a cross-generational witch hunt when someone argued boomers hid remotes to prevent channel-flipping anarchy. Millennials buried them under adult responsibilities disguised as laundry, and Gen Z transported them into alternate dimensions by storing everything in blanket nests, turning a basic case of absent-mindedness into a joint task force investigation worthy of a prestige crime drama, except the missing item turned up exactly where it always does, deep in the couch, clinging to crumbs and lint like a hostage too ashamed to announce itself. 9. A shattered Bluetooth speaker became the centerpiece of a generational blame festival when a group claimed boomers caused its demise by not trusting wireless technology enough, millennials by over-trusting wireless technology to fix its own problems, and Gen Z by turning the bass up until it achieved structural failure, generating a three-way argument about responsibility for a device that died heroically trying to play music at a volume no plastic casing was designed to survive. While each generation lectured the others about audio etiquette like the speaker was a martyr for their philosophical differences. 10. A forgotten password spiraled into a full generational meltdown when one employee claimed boomers invented the chaos by writing passwords on sticky notes like they're ancient runes. Millennials escalated the problem by creating emotionally complex passwords that require therapy to memorize, and Gen Z pushed it into the abyss by letting autofill handle everything until the moment autofill quits out of spite, turning a routine login failure into a cultural tragedy involving security questions. No one can answer honestly because no one remembers their first pet's middle name or which childhood street counts as formative. 11. A neighborhood group chat imploding over a raccoon sighting led to accusations that boomers created wildlife panic culture. Millennials ruined coexistence by Googling raccoon behavior until paranoia became a personality trait, and Gen Z worsened it by treating the raccoon like a misunderstood influencer and giving it a nickname, turning a trash-loving animal into the unwilling mascot of generational conflict as people argued not about what to do, but about whose generation had the correct worldview for interpreting a raccoon's motives, which are famously limited to food, survival, and committing low-level misdemeanor chaos. 12. A dropped call during a family conversation mutated into a generational autopsy as boomers claimed millennials held their phones like they're trying to feng shui the signal away. Millennials insisted boomers still think you need to shout to reach the satellites, and Gen Z took the blame for FaceTiming from places where the laws of physics politely reside, turning one moment of bad reception into a philosophical debate about wireless loyalty, suburban infrastructure, and who exactly deserves credit for ruining phone conversations in a world where every carrier promises nationwide coverage but only delivers it in theory. 13. A broken sink faucet became symbolic ammunition when one tenant argued boomers caused it by tightening fixtures like they're building submarines, millennials by researching DIY repairs until the faucet lost the will to live, and Gen Z by treating plumbing like a background character that should fix itself, transforming a simple mechanical failure into a generational morality narrative about who respects home maintenance, even though the faucet never asked to be part of a socio-political argument. It just snapped under the pressure of being used by humans with wildly unrealistic expectations about metal fatigue. 14. A glitchy Zoom meeting erupted into cross-generational outrage after boomers blamed millennials for inventing remote work chaos, millennials blamed boomers for joining calls like they're defusing a bomb, and Gen Z blamed everyone for expecting Wi-Fi to behave like a loyal pet, spiraling a frozen screen and choppy audio into a referendum on digital etiquette, camera angles, and whether muting yourself before eating chips should be considered a constitutional obligation, despite the fact the real problem was the Wi-Fi router overheating like a stressed hamster running in a wheel made of plastic lies. 15. A burnt piece of toast detonated a three-way blame game when boomers insisted millennials ruined toasters by inventing artisanal bread too thick for mortal appliances. Millennials claimed boomers created the crisis by treating every setting past 3 as forbidden territory. And Gen Z countered that the toaster industry itself failed them by not making smart devices that prevent culinary tragedies, transforming a crisp slice of carbs into a generational philosophy debate about breakfast responsibility, appliance innovation, and whether burnt food counts as personal failure or artistic expression. 16. A shared calendar reminder being ignored exploded into accusations that boomers see digital alerts as suggestions from a bored robot. Millennials treat reminders like gentle, emotional nudges from the universe, and Gen Z expects apps to interpret their intentions telepathically, turning one missed appointment into a cultural critique of scheduling habits, personal accountability, and whether time itself is a social construct invented to create conflict between people who fundamentally cannot agree on what the phrase "be there at 2" means. 17. A car dashboard warning light triggered a 3-generation blame tornado when boomers accused millennials of listening to the car too emotionally. Millennials accused boomers of ignoring warning lights like their horoscope suggestions, and Gen Z argued the manufacturer was at fault for not replacing warning icons with emojis for better vibes, turning a simple maintenance alert into a symbolic battleground where each generation defended its automotive worldview with unwavering confidence, even though the car was simply trying to say one thing: please get an oil change before I give up on all of you. 18. A group project collapsing in spectacular fashion became a generational case study when one student claimed boomers created the entire crisis by inventing teamwork as a punishment. Millennials escalated it by hosting endless planning sessions that produced vibes but no deliverables. And Gen Z detonated the whole thing by turning the shared document into an emotional support notebook, resulting in a final presentation that looked less like coordinated effort and more like the forensic remains of a collaboration that never truly existed, because everyone blamed everyone else for not doing their part, even though no one ever clarified what parts existed. And by the end, the only thing produced at a professional level was resentment. 19. A grocery store. Self-checkout meltdown turned into a generational blame opera when boomers insisted the machines were hostile because young people gave them feelings. Millennials argued the real problem was putting anxious introverts in charge of scanning barcodes under pressure, and Gen Z claimed the machines were punishing society for underestimating artificial intelligence for years, transforming a simple weight sensor error into a conspiracy about who broke the social contract between humans and robots first, while the machine repeated "unexpected item in the bagging area," like a passive-aggressive mantra designed to remind everyone that technology is the only generation truly winning. 20. A family group chat imploding over the meaning of a thumbs-up emoji became a generational case file after boomers treated it as a cheerful punctuation mark, millennials interpreted it as passive-aggressive compliance, and Gen Z insisted it was basically the emotional equivalent of filing for interpersonal bankruptcy, creating a multi-age diplomatic crisis triggered by a single pixelated thumb that somehow managed to carry more psychological weight than most breakups. And while everyone argued about its tone, the original message, something about picking up milks, was entirely forgotten, silently proving that emojis now wield more political influence than actual politicians. 21. A restaurant menu offering build-your-own salad evolved into a generational referendum on choice when boomers accused millennials of inventing decision fatigue culture. Millennials retaliated by claiming boomers created anxiety by expecting salads to come predefined, and Gen Z blamed everyone for letting customization become a capitalist trap disguised as vegetables, all while one poor server stood there waiting for a table of adults to choose between 2 types of lettuce, which somehow became a philosophical duel about identity, autonomy, and who ruined the concept of ordering food without experiencing a crisis, even though the salad itself tasted like every salad ever created. Fine, but not worth ideological combat. 22. A broken vacuum cleaner unleashed a generational blame avalanche when someone claimed boomers destroyed it with aggressive cleaning enthusiasm. Millennials ruined it by treating chores like self-care rituals the vacuum wasn't prepared for, and Gen Z sabotaged it by expecting it to sync with their phone like a household pet with Bluetooth, turning the death of a mid-priced appliance into a symbolic argument about domestic responsibility, technological expectations, and whether vacuums deserve workplace accommodations, while the only thing the vacuum truly needed was retirement, preferably somewhere quiet where no one demands it. Ingest an entire floor's worth of human shedding. 23. A home Wi-Fi outage during a family gathering became a multi-generational psychological thriller when boomers insisted the IE router died because kids these days drain the internet with nonsense. Millennials blamed boomers for refusing to update the password since 2014, and Gen Z claimed the outage was cosmic proof that the universe rejects family bonding, turning a simple disconnect into a hostage situation where everyone negotiated their emotional stability with a blinking router that clearly had the same wish as everyone else: to be left alone. 24. A car GPS sending a driver down a questionable dirt road erupted into a generational blame spectacle, as boomers argued the detour happened because millennials trust robots too much. Millennials countered that boomers treat printed maps like sacred scripture, and Gen Z claimed the road was obviously correct because chaotic navigation is an aesthetic, turning one misrouted turn into a cultural debate about whether humans or technology have worse decision-making skills, even though both consistently prove their mutual talent for overconfidence. 25. A workplace potluck devolved into generational warfare after boomers brought dishes requiring dental insurance. Millennials contributed carefully curated meals with emotionally weighted backstories, and Gen Z showed up with something store-bought that looked like it came from the leftover bin of a gas station, each group blaming the others for ruining community spirit, raising unrealistic standards, or rejecting culinary sincerity, as if the fate of humanity hinged on who brought what food instead of the actual truth. Potlucks exist purely as an experiment to see which generation folds under social pressure first. 26. A gym treadmill malfunctioning mid-run turned into a generational mythology session when boomers declared millennials overcomplicated exercise by counting steps. Millennials blamed boomers for still believing treadmills should behave like loyal farm animals, and Gen Z insisted the treadmill simply needed a better narrative arc, transforming a simple belt slip into an existential debate about fitness culture, where no one admitted the obvious. The machine quit because it was tired of pretending humans run gracefully. 27. A shared fridge at work becoming a biohazard led to a generational tribunal when boomers accused millennials of meal prepping like doomsday enthusiasts. Millennials blamed boomers for treating expiration dates like speculative fiction, and Gen Z pointed to both and claimed the food ecosystem has rights too, converting a forgotten container of leftovers into a living metaphor about shared responsibility, avoidance strategies, and intergenerational diplomacy, all of which failed because no one ever actually cleaned the fridge. 28. A TV streaming platform recommending terrible shows sparked accusations that boomers ruined the algorithm by watching documentaries about boats. Millennials corrupted it with gritty midlife crisis dramas, and Gen Z polluted it entirely with shows where everyone whispers and nothing happens, turning a malfunctioning recommendation system into a cultural blame spiral where no generation accepted responsibility for their viewing habits, even though the algorithm itself was the real villain, having decided long ago that human suffering is excellent for engagement metrics. 29. A public park recycling bin filling incorrectly ignited a generational blame parade when boomers insisted millennials ruined recycling by overthinking plastics. Millennials countered that boomers treat every bin like a general suggestion, and Gen Z claimed recycling itself was a broken system built on denial, all while the bin overflowed with items that never should have existed in the first place, proving once again that humans are united by one universal trait: the inability to follow a picture of a bottle printed on a trash can. 30. A hotel elevator stopping at every floor became a multiplayer generational accusation game after boomers declared the behavior was caused by kids pressing all the buttons for amusement. Millennials insisted boomers randomly push things when confused and walk away. And Gen Z claimed the elevator was probably making a statement about capitalism, turning a routine mechanical feature into a symbolic debate about impulse control, intergenerational communication, and the fact that no one can resist pressing a shiny button shaped like a glowing promise of chaos. 31. A workplace whiteboard permanently ghosted with marker residue ignited a generational symposium when boomers blamed millennials for introducing dry erase culture without proper rituals. Millennials accused boomers of using permanent marker during moments of emotional intensity, and Gen Z argued that whiteboards were a boomer technology with unresolved trauma, turning a stained rectangle into a philosophical discussion about workplace tools and who is responsible for maintaining them, while the whiteboard continued its slow decline into a modern cave painting representing collective failure. 32. A public restroom hand dryer refusing to activate became generational commentary fodder after boomers insisted millennials stand in front of sensors like confused statues. Millennials countered that boomers wave violently like they're signaling aircraft, and Gen Z claimed the hand dryer simply rejects negative energy, transforming an uncooperative machine into a spiritual debate about hygiene, technology, and who deserves dry hands in a society that can't agree on basic sensor etiquette. 33. A movie night ruined by arguments over subtitles triggered a generational culture war when boomers claimed subtitles ruined the mystery. Millennials insisted they enhance the cinematic experience, and Gen Z demanded subtitles because actors refused to speak above a whisper, turning a basic accessibility feature into a symbolic referendum on how humans consume stories, all while the movie played in the background unheard, unseen, and entirely unappreciated by anyone involved. 34. A neighborhood yard sale negotiation collapsing over a $3 lamp set off generational commentary when boomers insisted millennials lost the art of haggling. Millennials accused boomers of treating every discount like a birthright, and Gen Z declared the pricing system a relic of pre-digital suffering, turning a simple transaction into a tragicomic display of economic philosophy where no one actually bought the lamp, but everyone walked away believing they had won a moral victory worth far more than $3. 35. A security camera at a grocery store catching someone sprinting down an aisle to grab the last loaf of bread turned into yet another generational blame ceremony when boomers claimed millennials caused the chaos by inventing artisanal shortages. Millennials blamed boomers for panic buying like the bread was a rare gemstone, and Gen Z insisted the real problem was a society that refuses to accept gluten's emotional journey, spiraling one person's dramatic cardio session into a cultural indictment of how different age groups treat carbohydrates, as if wheat is a political platform, economic forecast, and spiritual belief system rolled into one, even though the loaf at the center of it all was later discovered to be gluten-free, taste-free, and joy-free, truly a symbolic prize for the fight it inspired. 36. A backyard sprinkler refusing to rotate properly sparked accusations when boomers insisted millennials created the issue by designing water pressure to be weak for environmental guilt. Millennials pointed at boomers for watering their lawns like they're cooling nuclear reactors, and Gen Z claimed the sprinkler was simply rejecting the choreographed expectations of suburban conformity, turning an uneven spray of water into a philosophical debate about resource management, aesthetic priorities, and whose generation mistreated outdoor equipment the most. And while everyone argued about symbolism, the neighbors received the unintended benefit of witnessing what looked like a confused fountain attempting modern interpretive dance. 37. A grocery self-service scale misreading the weight of apples triggered a multi-generational meltdown as boomers accused millennials of technology worship. Millennials countered that boomers press buttons too aggressively, traumatizing innocent machines, and Gen Z insisted the scale had entered its villain era, turning a miscalculated fruit price into a dramatic narrative about human-machine politics, while the apples, naturally, remained completely indifferent to the conflict, a reminder that produce is the only group in the store with a stable identity. 38. A movie theater concession stand running out of butter became a three-way debate when boomers accused millennials of excessive emotional pouring. Millennials blamed boomers for inventing the butter apocalypse in the 80s. And Gen Z declared the shortage a metaphor for the collapse of shared cultural lubrication, transforming a temporary condiment outage into a catastrophic referendum on generational appetite, responsibility, and desire, all while the popcorn sat there naked, embarrassed, and audibly crunchy in a way that offended everyone equally, proving once again that nothing unites humans like complaining about snacks. 39. A smartphone autocorrect changing someone's simple text, "On my way," into "Own my weasel," became the center of blame when boomers declared millennials allowed phones to get too smart for their own good. Millennials countered that boomers type like they're performing CPR, and Gen Z argued autocorrect had embraced chaos as a design philosophy, escalating a typo into a generational referendum on communication, literacy, and the mystery of why technology insists on sabotaging humans at the exact moment. Clear communication would have been helpful, leaving everyone with the haunting mental image of a weasel no one ordered or expected. 40. A workplace Slack channel devolving into GIF-only communication created another generational shouting match as boomers accused millennials of killing the written word. Millennials insisted boomers insert periods so aggressively it feels like they're scolding the group, and Gen Z defended GIFs as language in its purest, unhinged form, turning a digital conversation about scheduling into a semiotics dissertation about tone, subtext, and why one animated raccoon shrugging has the power to trigger 3 age brackets at once. even though everyone secretly knew the raccoon was the only one making valid points. 41. A public charging station with only one outlet available turned strangers into amateur philosophers. As boomers argued millennials invented battery addiction, millennials insisted boomers drain their phones by refusing to close apps, ever. And Gen Z claimed everyone older than them charges their phone like they're praying to an ancient lightning deity, turning a simple competition for electricity into an allegory about dependency, entitlement, and the fact that humans will absolutely judge each other morally when deciding whose phone deserves to live, even though everyone knows the real villain is the outlet designer who thought one plug was enough. 42. A restaurant table erupting into debate after someone posted a photo of their meal without warning led boomers to blame millennials for turning food into a photo shoot, millennials to blame boomers for not understanding boundaries in the digital age, and Gen Z to argue that both groups were missing the point because the lighting was terrible and the composition chaotic, converting a harmless snapshot into a generational lecture on aesthetics, privacy, and cultural priorities, while the soup at the center of the conflict cooled to a temperature best described as revenge. 43. A treadmill desk appearing in an office triggered a generational panic spiral when boomers insisted millennials invented exercise guilt. Millennials countered that boomers treat any movement during work hours as a threat, and Gen Z argued the desk should be rebranded as kinetic productivity manifestation, creating a workplace debate so unhinged that the treadmill desk itself started to feel like a silent third party in an HR mediation, even though its only real crime was existing in a world that can't agree whether walking while typing is inspirational or a cry for help. 44. A neighborhood cat wandering onto someone's roof became a generational tirade when boomers insisted millennials baby animals too much. Millennials countered that boomers treat wildlife like unpaid pest control, and Gen Z argued the cat was living its best rooftop influencer lifestyle, turning a feline minding its business into a debate about human projections, pet psychology, and whose worldview can most confidently misinterpret animal behavior, all while the cat stared down at the arguing humans with the unimpressed expression of a creature who knows it outranks them socially. 45. A thermostat reset during a heat wave brought tension to new heights when boomers accused millennials of thermostat emotionality. Millennials accused boomers of treating air conditioning like a sacred relic, and Gen Z lectured both sides on embracing thermal realism, turning a minor disruption in indoor climate into a household uprising that framed temperature as a moral issue. And the only real winner was the energy bill, which skyrocketed as fast as everyone's mutual resentment. 46. A package delivered to the wrong house triggered a neighborhood-wide generational blame opera as boomers insisted millennials shop online like they're single-handedly keeping the postal service hostage. Millennials blamed boomers for refusing to adopt tracking numbers, and Gen Z accused both sides of ignoring the algorithmic destiny of misrouted parcels, escalating a simple delivery mistake into an existential dissertation about consumer habits, technological trust, and shared incompetence, while the missing package sat safely next door waiting for someone, anyone, to display an ounce of common curiosity. 47. A group brunch collapsing over payment logistics led boomers to accuse millennials of splitting checks like economists in crisis, millennials to accuse boomers of treating Venmo like an ancient curse tablet, and Gen Z to chastise everyone for refusing to embrace frictionless financial vibes, turning a $62 breakfast into a mathematical hostage negotiation where pancakes became bargaining chips and friendship bonds became collateral damage, all because humanity refuses to agree on who ordered the extra side of bacon. 48. A gym sauna argument about etiquette spiraled when boomers declared millennials oversteamed everything with their wellness obsessions, millennials argued. Boomers weaponize silence like it's a competitive sport, and Gen Z insisted saunas should be rebranded as collective healing spaces for chaotic energy, turning a hot wooden box into a philosophical arena where sweat became symbolic, and the only universally accepted rule was that no one should talk but everyone absolutely must judge. 49. A school bake sale featuring store-bought cookies sparked blame when boomers claimed millennials destroyed tradition. Millennials countered that boomers forgot that time is a finite resource, and Gen Z argued the cookies should be NFT mintable assets, turning a simple pastry into a generational referendum on values, labor, authenticity, and whether the concept of baking is a nostalgic art or a hostile takeover attempt on evenings people would prefer to spend doing literally anything else. 50. A hotel room keycard demagnetizing in someone's pocket triggered an intergenerational meltdown when boomers blamed millennials for carrying too many devices. Millennials blamed boomers for storing cards next to magnets like it's 1973. And Gen Z insisted the card was rejecting linear access hierarchies, escalating a minor inconvenience into a cultural saga about technology, superstition, and pockets, while the door itself remained locked, silently judging everyone for choosing plastic over keys. 51. A power outage during a family dinner became the ultimate generational blame finale when boomers insisted millennials stressed the grid with emotional appliances. Millennials countered that boomers designed the grid during an era when 2 lamps counted as heavy usage, and Gen Z declared the blackout symbolic proof that society can't handle our combined energy, turning a simple outage into the most poetic accident of all. Complete darkness. The one moment in history when every generation had no choice but to sit together, silent, powerless, and finally unified in the only truth that has ever mattered. None of them understood how electricity works in the first place. And there you have it, an entire cross-generational circus proving humanity will argue about absolutely anything except who's actually responsible. So, pick your favorite disaster in the comments, declare your winner of Dumbest Generation, and if you survive this chaos, you already know what to do next.